How can you improve the question and answer portion of your next speech or presentation? Hi, I'm Tim Barnaby. I'm a certified world-class speaking coach, and I help business professionals speak, lead, and succeed in their careers and their life. Today I want to share with you some thoughts around the Q&A portion of your speech or presentation and what you can do to make it more effective. Now, you might be wondering, how can you make an impromptu session more effective? Well, there are a lot of speakers that are out there today who are not prepared when it comes to the question and answer portion of their presentation. And what do I mean by that? Well, they have rehearsed their presentation many times. They've delivered it many times. And so they found what works for them, what resonates in terms of the wording, the placement, the staging. And then when people from their audience ask them questions, they tend to stumble. They want to make the wording just right, but they're doing it on the spot. And they're recalling back to certain points maybe in their presentation or from an example of a story of some sort and putting it together on the spot, and it just doesn't come across as effective. Now, there are two things that you could do to help this in the future. Number one, as you continue to give your presentations over and over again, take note of the questions that are being asked of you by the different audience members. You may find that they are being asked in a very similar manner. Heck, they might even be asked the exact same way. And so when you're preparing for your presentation, when you're doing the rehearsal of the planned remarks, you can actually prepare for being asked those specific questions. This way, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to look extra polished, but you are prepared to answer the question that is already on your audience's mind. Think of it from a standpoint of websites that you go to. There's lots of information on those specific websites, but they always include a frequently asked questions section, because this is where they already know people are going to ask this through their chat or phone lines. Therefore, they've identified, here's what people generally ask us. And therefore, you can then go and see, oh, is this something that may already have been answered that now I have the answer readily available? So your Q&A can be treated like a frequently asked questions section where you already are aware that they're going to ask that type of question or something similar, and you're prepared for it. Another reason that you want to prepare some answers to some frequently asked questions is that sometimes the Q&A portion arrives and your audience doesn't have any questions. And rather than having this awkward silence in the room, while you're waiting for somebody to be brave enough to put up their hand, you could start out your Q&A section with, I've given this presentation before, and one of the questions that most audiences have asked me is, and then you could state the question that you've seen in the past. And that will give your audience a little bit more time to be thinking about what it is they want to ask you, and they might even appreciate the fact that, oh, that was the kind of question that I was going to ask actually. And if that was something that you've been asked before, well, heck, let me ask another question I might have, because you may have already been asked this before as well, and you seem to know the answer. So there are two things right there that you would want to consider working on for your next speech or presentation. And again, just look back to other presentations you've given. Hopefully you've been recording yourself, and see where there are some commonality in those questions so that you can prepare for them in the future. And where you do find that there are some questions that have been asked on a regular basis, make that part of the Q&A portion if your audience is a little too nervous to actually ask anything. That way you'll keep your presentation rolling, and if you end up not having that many questions asked of you and you've answered a couple of 3 impromptu questions that you can remember from common presentations in the past, you can roll right into your conclusion and end with a bang. So let me know what you've experienced in your past with regards to Q&A, and specifically the questions that you've received from your audiences. Do you find that there is some commonality among them from different groups that you present to? And do you think that this is something that you could take to your next presentation as something that you're prepared to take on, whether you already know the question is going to be asked, or you can take it in as a prepared question to ask of yourself on behalf of your audience if they're not ready to ask one for you? So let me know what you think. Tell me about that experience in the notes below. I'd love to get some feedback on whether or not this resonates and works for you. And as always, if you haven't done so already, check out my social media profiles. And of course, go to timbarnaby.com to check out the services that I offer to speaking professionals just like you. Well, that's all for today. I hope this tip resonates with you, and I hope it leads to better presentations for you in your future. And until we meet again, here's to your speaking success.